For indoor season, it is typical to tune at 18 meters. So I have a single spot hung up here at 18 meters. It's nice to start on a single spot, even if you compete on a triangle or a 3-spot recurve target, because it's easier to tell where you're grouping and where your bare shaft is compared to your group. So I have a single spot here. And typically when you start tuning, you want to shoot a group of your fletched arrows to start with. So it doesn't have to be exactly center, but sometimes you want to shoot 3, get it in the center, that's fine, and then start bare shaft tuning, whatever works for you. The main thing is just seeing the bare shaft and how it groups compared to your group of fletched arrows. So if I have my group in the middle here and I'm left-handed, if my bare shaft goes to the right, that means my arrow is stiff. And if my bare shaft goes to the left, that means my arrow is weak. For most of you who are right-handed, if you have your group in the middle and your bare shaft is right, that means it would be currently weak. And if it is left, that means it is stiff. So now I'm standing here at 18 meters. I have 3 fletched arrows and 1 bare shaft. I'm going to shoot my 3 fletched arrows first, and then my bare shaft, and see where it is in comparison to the group. This is my first group I shot with just after putting my bow together, and it's a really good group. It's slightly to the right, but that's easy to change with a few clicks on the sight. Looking at the bare shaft in relation to the group, it is just slightly high and a little bit right, which for me being left-handed, that is slightly stiff. So in this situation, I would probably take maybe 3 clicks off my plunger and see how it groups again. Based on the results of my bare shaft, it was showing slightly stiff, so I'm going to change the plunger tension. In the plunger, there is a spring, and based on how much this barrel is turned in or out, it changes the stiffness or the weakness. So right now it is fairly stiff, so I'm gonna take my plunger here and take just a few clicks off. It doesn't take much to change it, so I'm gonna start with 3 and see what that looks like with a bare shaft in relation to my group. Now that I've changed that tension, I'm also gonna move my sight because my group was slightly to the right last end. So now after I made those adjustments, my group is more towards the center since I moved my sight, and my bare shaft is actually showing slightly weak now because it's to the left and I'm left-handed. So I took 3 clicks off the plunger. I'm going to put 1 back on and see if that fine-tunes it a little bit better. So now I'm going to put 1 click back on, and we're going to see how that groups again. After I stiffen my plunger, my group is slightly to the right, which makes sense because those arrows aren't depressing into the plunger as much. So on a left-handed bow, they will be slightly right. And we have a better group here. My bare shaft is just slightly to the left and a little high, but it's actually not a bad thing to have it be a little high because the fletched arrows have the weight of the fletchings on them, whereas the bare shaft does not. So it makes sense that it might be slightly high of the group. So looking at the way I shoot and the way my groups normally look, this is a good tune for me. It is inside what would be like a Vegas 10 ring size of the bare shaft being within that group of the fletched arrows. So I would call this a good tune. Now with how I set my bow up, my bare shaft initially was pretty close to the group. So I just gave a few clicks on the plunger, which is probably the easiest fix when you have a bare shaft that's within 2 to 3 inches of your fletched group. If you have something that's like really far from your fletched group with the bare shaft, that's probably more a problem of adjusting the draw weight or the arrow spine. Typically before tuning, you also like to have a few arrows out of the bow or let it sit overnight to let the limbs set and the string stretch. It's typical for a string to stretch maybe about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch just because of the tension on it. Once you've shot quite a few arrows out of the bow or let it sit overnight, it's a better time to start tuning after you've done so.